There's a myth about America that's repeated so often it's practically gospel. If you want the good life, you'll have to pay for it, and pay a lot. Think beachfront houses in Florida for millions, or downtown apartments in big cities where rent devours your paycheck before you've even bought groceries. But the truth is more complicated. The United States is vast, and scattered across its thousands of towns are places where the cost of living seems frozen in another decade entirely. These aren't rundown ghost towns with boarded-up storefronts and tumbleweed blowing through the streets. They're functioning communities with schools, shops, and, in many cases, surprising amenities. They're just not on the mainstream radar. Part of their magic is that they exist outside the overheated property markets. They're bypassed by the commuter lines feeding the big metros. They don't trend on TikTok or get featured in glossy travel magazines. And that's exactly why they've remained so affordable. In some of these towns, you could buy a home outright for less than the down payment on a modest property in Los Angeles or New York. In others, a month's mortgage payment could be less than what many urban dwellers spend on parking. For people willing to look beyond the obvious, these towns feel almost like a loophole in the system, a way to live well without spending your life chained to debt. The trade-offs are real: smaller job markets, less nightlife, and in some cases, long winters or remote locations. But for those who value space, community, and a dramatically lower cost of living, they're the sort of places that make you wonder, how is this even possible in 2025? Pittsburgh, Kansas. Southeast Kansas doesn't get much attention, even within Kansas itself, but that's part of why Pittsburgh is such a standout for affordability. This is a city of roughly 20,000 people, anchored by Pittsburgh State University, which brings a steady flow of students, faculty, and cultural events. It's a college town without the inflated property prices you see in bigger university hubs. Housing here is astonishingly cheap. It's common to find tidy two-bedroom homes for $65,000 to $80,000. Even larger three-bedroom houses in move-in condition often list for under $120,000. There are fixer-uppers under $50,000 that, with a bit of sweat equity, could rival homes costing 5 times as much in other states. Property taxes are reasonable, and the overall cost of living, from groceries to utilities, comes in well below the national average. Life in Pittsburgh is quieter than in bigger cities, but far from boring. The university brings in concerts, theater productions, and sporting events. Downtown Pittsburgh has been slowly revitalizing, with new cafes, restaurants, and boutique shops popping up alongside long-standing local businesses. Outdoor recreation is plentiful. Lakes, parks, and trails are close at hand, and the Ozark Mountains are just a short drive away. The job market leans toward education, healthcare, and manufacturing. But many residents commute to Joplin, Missouri, just 30 minutes away. For remote workers, the affordability here makes the prospect even sweeter. You could realistically live mortgage-free and still have enough left over each month for travel, hobbies, or investing. A financial position that's almost impossible in high-cost states. Gadsden, Alabama. Nestled along the Coosa River in northeastern Alabama, Gadsden is one of those places where you can buy a house for the cost of a used car and still have change left over. The town's riverfront location gives it a scenic backdrop, while nearby Nakalula Falls Park, with its 90-foot waterfall, hiking trails, and botanical gardens, is the kind of natural attraction many towns would envy. Median home prices here hover around $120,000, but you can easily find two-bedroom homes under $90,000. And it's not unheard of to see listings in the $50,000 to $60,000 range. Even properties with significant land attached often stay under $200,000. Utility costs are low, and Alabama's property taxes are among the lowest in the nation. Gadsden has a long history as a manufacturing center, but like many such towns, it faced economic challenges when industry declined. The upside is that it's avoided the runaway housing inflation seen in other parts of the country. Today, the economy is steadier, with jobs in healthcare, small manufacturing, and retail. Downtown Gadsden has been making a comeback, with restaurants, antique shops, and art galleries bringing life back to the historic core. For those who love the outdoors, Gadsden's location is ideal. The Appalachian foothills are close enough for weekend hiking trips, and the Coosa River offers fishing, kayaking, and boating right in town. The pace of life is easygoing, neighbors still know each other, and the sense of community is strong. For someone seeking affordability without sacrificing charm or scenery, Gadsden is hard to beat. Decatur, Illinois, Central Illinois isn't on most people's dream destination list. But if your idea of a dream is being mortgage-free before 40, or even before 30, Decatur deserves a serious look. Historically an agricultural and manufacturing powerhouse, Decatur grew up around both the railroads and the vast fields that surround it. Today it still carries that industrial backbone, but it's softened by an unexpectedly scenic setting along the banks of Lake Decatur, a sprawling man-made reservoir that brings a splash of waterfront charm to this otherwise classic Midwestern city. On a summer evening, you can watch the sun set over the lake while pelicans and geese drift past. Something you might not expect in the middle of Illinois corn country. The housing market here is almost shockingly affordable, especially to anyone coming from the coast or major metros. Median home prices hover right around $100,000. But the real magic is in the specifics. Solid, move-in ready 3-bedroom homes in good neighborhoods regularly list between $70,000 and $90,000. Even larger houses with extra space, big yards, and updated interiors often fall below $120,000. And lakefront or lakeview properties, which in many cities would command a small fortune, can sometimes be found for under $150,000. Property taxes are higher than in some low-cost states, but they're calculated on such low home values that the monthly bite still ends up well below the national average. Decatur has made visible efforts in recent years to invest in its public spaces and quality of life. Parks and trails have been upgraded, and Lake Decatur itself is ringed by spots for fishing, boating, and picnicking. The revitalized downtown, once dotted with empty storefronts, now hosts a seasonal farmers market, street festivals, and live music events that bring out the community. Restaurants range from old-school diners to new bistros, and there's a sprinkling of craft breweries that hint at a growing food and drink scene. Culturally, the city benefits from the presence of Millikan University, which adds both youthful energy and a strong arts program. Theater productions, gallery exhibits, and concerts are part of the year-round calendar. For families, the Scoville Zoo and the Children's Museum of Illinois provide affordable, kid-friendly outings, and the local park district keeps a steady lineup of sports leagues and community activities. Economically, Decatur is anchored by agriculture. Archer Daniels Midland, ADM, has a huge footprint here, along with education, healthcare, and light manufacturing. While wages tend to be lower than national averages, the balance tilts strongly in residents' favor when you factor in the cost of living. A couple earning modest salaries can buy a home outright in a matter of years, save aggressively for retirement, or simply enjoy a higher quality of life without financial strain. Utilities, groceries, and general expenses stay well below what many Americans are used to paying. Of course, life here isn't for everyone. Winters can be cold, windy, and snowy, and the pace of daily life is much slower than in major cities. The nightlife is limited compared to Chicago or St. Louis, and you'll probably need a car for most errands. But for many people, those so-called downsides are part of the appeal. A quieter rhythm, a community that still feels close-knit, and a chance to build financial stability in a world where that's increasingly rare. In Decatur, you're not chasing the market. You're stepping out of it entirely, into a place where a comfortable home, a reasonable monthly budget, and room to breathe are still the norm. Muskogee, Oklahoma. Oklahoma doesn't always get credit for its affordability, but Muskogee is one of those places where the cost of living isn't just low, it's almost disarming. Located about 50 miles southeast of Tulsa, Muskogee is steeped in history. Its roots run deep in Native American heritage, frontier settlement, and the agricultural economy that still defines much of the region. The name itself, immortalized in Merle Haggard's Okie from Muskogee, hints at a down-to-earth character that hasn't been lost over the decades. The housing market here is the kind that makes big city dwellers shake their heads in disbelief. Modest 2-bedroom homes can sell for $60,000 to $80,000. 3-bedroom properties often hover between $90,000 and $120,000. And it's not unusual to see large, move-in-ready family homes with sizable yards listed for under $150,000. Even with interest rates in the current climate, monthly mortgage payments can be so low that they rival the average American's car payment. Muskogee isn't a flashy city, but it has its share of amenities. There are multiple grocery stores, chain and independent restaurants, several museums, and a surprisingly rich local music scene. The town also hosts the annual Azalea Festival each spring, which transforms Honor Heights Park into a riot of color. Outdoor lovers will find nearby lakes and rivers for fishing, boating, and camping, plus golf courses and walking trails scattered throughout the area. One of Muskogee's biggest advantages is its proximity to Tulsa. For those willing to commute, you can live in Muskogee at a fraction of Tulsa's housing costs and still take advantage of the larger city's job market. Even without leaving town, jobs in healthcare, education, manufacturing, and local government keep the economy stable. The slower pace of life, paired with incredibly low living expenses, makes Muskogee a place where financial breathing room is the norm, not the exception. Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Nestled in the Allegheny Mountains about 70 miles east of Pittsburgh, Johnstown is a town that's known for two things: its steel industry past and its history of devastating floods. But beyond those headlines, Johnstown is quietly one of the most affordable towns in the entire Northeast, a rare find in a region where housing prices have surged in recent years. Median home prices here sit around $50,000 to $60,000. Yes, that's the median. It's possible to buy a move-in-ready 3-bedroom house for less than $80,000, and fixer-uppers can be found for under $40,000. Property taxes are moderate, and the overall cost of living is significantly below the national average, especially compared to Pennsylvania's larger cities like Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. Johnstown's setting is undeniably beautiful, surrounded by rolling hills and thick forests that explode with color each autumn. Outdoor recreation is abundant, with hiking, fishing, and hunting opportunities close to town. The nearby ski resorts and state parks make it a year-round destination for those who love the outdoors. The local economy, once dominated by steel, has diversified into healthcare, education, and small manufacturing. The University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown adds a college town element with cultural events, lectures, and sports. The town has been investing in revitalizing its downtown, with new breweries, restaurants, and shops breathing life back into the historic buildings. For remote workers, Johnstown offers something unusual: Northeast charm and scenery at prices more common in the rural Midwest or South. For people tied to Pittsburgh for work, the drive is about an hour and a half, doable a couple of days a week. The combination of extremely low housing costs and access to the beauty of the Laurel Highlands makes Johnstown a serious contender for anyone wanting affordability without giving up four-season living. Carthage, Missouri. Carthage might be one of the most picturesque small towns in America that you've never heard of. The kind of place that feels like it belongs in a period film rather than on a Zillow search. Nestled in the southwestern corner of Missouri, not far from Joplin, Carthage blends layers of history, architectural beauty, and small-town warmth into a package that's both visually striking and surprisingly affordable. Known as America's Maple Leaf City, thanks to its brilliant displays of fall foliage, Carthage has a seasonal rhythm that adds to its charm. In autumn, the streets and surrounding countryside explode with reds, oranges, and golds, framing the town's Victorian-era homes and historic landmarks in postcard-worthy scenes. It's a place where you could easily spend an afternoon wandering tree-lined streets, pausing to admire the ornate gables and wraparound porches of homes built more than a century ago. The housing market here feels like a time capsule from a different era. Median home prices sit around $120,000, but plenty of solid 2- and 3-bedroom houses are available for well under $100,000. If you've ever dreamed of owning a house with historic character, late 1800s brick residences with tall windows, or early 20th century craftsman bungalows with original woodwork, Carthage delivers those in the $150,000 to $200,000 range. In many other parts of the country, that kind of architecture would easily push past $500,000. The cost of living in Carthage stays comfortably below the national average, with Missouri's relatively low property taxes keeping monthly expenses down even further. Utilities, groceries, and everyday services are all priced modestly, giving residents the kind of financial breathing room that's increasingly rare in the U.S. Carthage's historic downtown square is the heart of the community, and it's not just a pretty facade. Anchored by the stunning Jasper County Courthouse, built from the town's own locally quarried Carthage marble, the square bustles with antique shops, boutiques, cafes, and family-run restaurants. This same marble found its way into landmark buildings across America, adding an extra layer of pride to the town's identity. Seasonal events, especially the beloved Maple Leaf Festival each October, transform the streets into a hub of parades, food stalls, and live entertainment, drawing visitors from across the region and reinforcing Carthage's reputation as a place that knows how to celebrate its heritage. Beyond its borders, Carthage is well-positioned for regional travel. Springfield is just under an hour away, offering larger-scale shopping, dining, and cultural options, while Joplin, just a short drive to the southwest, provides employment opportunities and a broader retail base. For remote workers, the town's affordable housing and peaceful pace are especially appealing, making it possible to own a comfortable home outright without draining your savings. Life in Carthage unfolds at a pace that feels almost nostalgic. Neighbors greet each other by name, local sports games still draw enthusiastic crowds, and weekends often revolve around community events, exploring the farmers market, or taking scenic drives through the surrounding Ozark foothills. There's a tangible sense of continuity here, a link to an earlier version of American life where connection, pride in place, and affordability were all part of the same equation. For anyone seeking a blend of charm, history, and financial sanity, Carthage isn't just worth a look. It's one of those places that could quietly change the way you think about what the good life actually costs. Danville, Virginia. Danville sits in south-central Virginia, just a short drive from the North Carolina border, and for decades it was known as a tobacco and textile powerhouse. When those industries declined, the local economy took a hard hit, and housing prices never bounced back to what you'd expect for a town with this much infrastructure and historic charm. Today, Danville is one of the most affordable places to live on the East Coast, a surprising statement when you consider it's within a day's drive of Washington, D.C., Raleigh, Charlotte, and Atlanta. Median home prices hover around $120,000, but the real story is in the range. Well-maintained three-bedroom homes routinely sell for $90,000 to $110,000, while smaller properties and fixer-uppers can be had for $50,000 to $70,000. Even larger historic homes in tree-lined neighborhoods often come in under $200,000, which is practically unheard of in much of the eastern U.S. Danville's history is visible everywhere. From the Victorian-era mansions along Millionaire's Row to the converted warehouses downtown that now house loft apartments, cafes, and co-working spaces, the River District, once struggling, has been steadily revitalized with breweries, art galleries, and green spaces along the Dan River. The town also benefits from its role as a regional healthcare and retail hub, giving it more amenities than many small towns of its size. For outdoor enthusiasts, the Dan River offers kayaking and fishing, while the surrounding countryside is dotted with hiking trails and state parks. The cost of living here extends its benefits beyond housing. Utilities, groceries, and services all run below the national average. For remote workers or retirees, Danville's combination of historic charm, affordability, and access to larger cities makes it a compelling option that feels almost like a hidden loophole in East Coast real estate. Parsons, Kansas. If you've ever dreamed of owning your own home without a mortgage payment looming over you every month, Parsons, Kansas might be the place where that dream becomes reality. Not in a maybe in 20 years way, but in a right now with cash to spare way. Tucked away in the southeastern corner of the state, Parsons was built on the steel rails of the Missouri-Kansas-Texas Railroad. For decades, the trains were the heartbeat of the city, bringing jobs, commerce, and a steady flow of travelers. While the rail industry's dominance has faded, it left behind wide streets, well-planned neighborhoods, and a surprisingly sturdy civic infrastructure for a town of this size. The housing market here borders on the unbelievable for anyone accustomed to coastal or even mid-sized city prices. Median home prices hover around $70,000, and listings for well-kept 2- or 3-bedroom homes in the $50,000 to $60,000 range are common. If you're willing to put in some elbow grease, fixer-uppers regularly appear for under $30,000, and every so often, you'll find a small, livable home that can be bought outright for less than the cost of 1 year's rent in most major U.S. metros. Kansas's moderate property taxes, paired with some of the lowest homeowners insurance rates in the nation, mean that even if you choose to finance, your monthly housing cost could easily be lower than many people's grocery bill. Parsons is small, roughly 9,000 residents, but it consistently punches above its weight in amenities. You'll find everything you actually need day to day: grocery stores, a decent selection of restaurants, schools, healthcare facilities, and even Labette Community College, which adds an educational and cultural boost to the town. Downtown Parsons retains its historic character, with brick-front buildings housing cafes, antique shops, and local businesses. The city is also proud of its heritage, most visibly celebrated each year during the Katy Days Festival, a multi-day event honoring its railroad roots with music, food, and family-friendly activities. The pace of life here is intentionally slow. Morning commutes are measured in minutes, not miles, and traffic jams are essentially non-existent. Crime rates are low compared to national averages, and the sense of community runs deep. People greet each other in passing, shopkeepers know your name, and neighborhood cookouts are still a thing. Everyday expenses echo the housing costs. A hearty meal out might set you back $10, a gallon of milk costs less than you'd expect, and local services are priced to match the economy. For remote workers or retirees, Parsons offers something rare in modern America: the ability to live well without financial strain. Imagine owning your home outright, keeping your monthly expenses under tight control, and having the time and peace of mind to actually enjoy your days. In Parsons, that's not a fantasy. It's just how life works. Weirton, West Virginia. Weirton sits in the northern panhandle of West Virginia, wedged between Ohio and Pennsylvania, and just 35 miles from Pittsburgh. This location is one of its greatest hidden strengths. You get the low housing costs and small-town feel of West Virginia, with easy access to the jobs, services, and cultural amenities of a major metropolitan area. Historically a steel town, Weirton thrived for much of the 20th century before the industry's decline reshaped its economy. While the city has diversified, with healthcare, manufacturing, and service industries now leading the way, its housing prices never caught up to its strategic location. The median home price sits around $130,000, but you can still find smaller two-bedroom homes for $80,000 to $100,000, and even large four-bedroom properties can often be had for under $200,000. Weirton's neighborhoods reflect its past prosperity: wide streets, solidly built homes, and pockets of vintage character. There's a thriving local dining scene for a city of its size, from old-school diners to new coffee shops. The town also benefits from its proximity to the Ohio River, offering scenic views and outdoor recreation opportunities. For commuters, Weirton is a sweet spot. It's a short drive to Pittsburgh International Airport, making travel easy, and it's close enough to Pittsburgh proper for work or leisure without the high housing costs. The combination of a friendly, tight-knit community, remarkably affordable real estate, and big city access makes Weirton one of those rare towns that seems to offer more than it asks in return. Brownsville, Texas down at the southernmost tip of Texas, right on the Mexican border, Brownsville is a warm-weather city that blends cultures, cuisines, and histories, all at a price point that seems almost impossible for a U.S. city of its size. The Gulf of Mexico is just 20 miles away, and South Padre Island, one of Texas's most famous beach destinations, is an easy day trip. Median home prices here hover around $150,000, but there are plenty of livable 2- and 3-bedroom homes for $100,000 to $130,000. Newer builds in good neighborhoods sometimes sell for under $200,000, and even properties with large yards and updated interiors are often far cheaper than equivalents in other coastal states. The cost of groceries, utilities, and services also comes in below the national average, stretching every dollar further. Brownsville's warm climate is a major draw, especially for retirees looking to escape harsh winters. The city is culturally rich, with festivals, markets, and events that celebrate its unique position as a bridge between the U.S. and Mexico. Historic downtown Brownsville features 19th century architecture, while newer developments offer modern conveniences. The local economy benefits from international trade, education, healthcare, and the nearby presence of SpaceX's launch facility at Boca Chica, which has put the area on the map for aerospace enthusiasts. Life here moves at a relaxed pace, with palm-lined streets, an abundance of parks, and easy access to fishing, boating, and beach-going. For anyone who wants coastal proximity, year-round warmth, and affordability in the same package, Brownsville is a rare find. The towns we've covered, from Kansas to Texas, from Pennsylvania to Virginia, share a common trait. They offer a cost of living that seems to defy the national trend. In an era when housing headlines are dominated by stories of bidding wars, skyrocketing rents, and out-of-reach mortgages, these communities quietly prove that not everywhere in America plays by those rules. Living in one of these places does come with trade-offs. Job markets can be smaller, public transit options limited, and entertainment scenes quieter than in major cities. Winters can be long in the Midwest, summers sweltering in the South, and some of these towns are far from airports or big hospitals. But those trade-offs also help keep prices low, and for the right person, they're more than worth it. The cheating the system feeling comes from what your money buys here. In cities like San Francisco or Boston, $120,000 might cover a parking space, if you're lucky. In towns like Parsons, Kansas, or Johnstown, Pennsylvania, that's enough for a fully paid-off house with a yard, maybe even with change to spare for renovations. Low property taxes, cheap utilities, and affordable groceries stack the savings even higher, giving residents a level of financial breathing room that's increasingly rare in modern America. For remote workers, retirees, or anyone with the flexibility to live outside a major metro, these towns can represent a path to not just homeownership, but a lifestyle free from the constant financial anxiety that defines life in many high-cost areas. And while they may never appear on most glamorous lists, they offer something much more tangible: stability, community, and the chance to actually enjoy your income instead of watching it disappear into bills. In a housing market that often feels rigged, these towns are proof that the loopholes still exist. You just have to be willing to look past the big names and shiny skylines and discover the places quietly rewriting the rules of affordability in America.